Their guide far off the prince knew by his shield, and thither hasted full of grief and fear. Her dead, him seeming so, he there beheld, and for that strange mishap shed many a tear. He would not leave the corpses fair in field for food to wolves, though she a pagan were, but in their arms the soldiers both uphent, and both lamenting brought to Tancred's tent. With those dear burdens to their camp they pass, yet would not that dead seeming knight awake. At last he deeply groaned, which token was his feeble soul had not her flight yet take. The other lay as still in heavy mass, her spirit had that earthen cage forsake. Thus were they brought, and thus they placed were in sundry rooms, yet both adjoining near. While skill and art his careful servants used to life again their dying lord to bring. At last his eyes unclosed, with tears suffused, he felt their hands and heard their whispering. But how he thither came long time he mused, his mind astonished was with everything. He gazed about, his squires in fine he knew, then weak and woeful thus his plaints outthrew. What, live I yet, and do I breathe and see of this accursed day the hateful light, this spiteful ray which still upbraideth me with that accursed deed I did this night? Ah, coward hand, afraid why shouldst thou be? Thou instrument of death, shame, and despite, why shouldst thou fear with sharp and trenchant knife to cut the thread of this blood-guilty life? Pierce through this bosom, and my cruel heart in pieces cleave, break every string in vain, but thou to slaughters vile which used art, thinkest it were pity so to ease my pain. Of luckless love therefore in torments smart, a sad example must I still remain, a woeful monster of unhappy love, who still must live, lest death his comfort prove. Still must I live in anguish, grief, and care, furies my guilty conscience that torment, the ugly shades, dark night, and troubled air, and grisly forms her slaughter still present. Madness and death about my bed repair, hell gapeth wide to swallow up this tent. Swift from myself I run, myself I fear, yet still my hell within myself I bear. But where, alas, where be those relics sweet, wherein dwelt late all love, all joy, all good? My fury left them cast in open street, some beast hath torn her flesh and licked her blood. Ah, noble prey, for savage beast unmeet, ah, sweet, too sweet, and far too precious food. Ah, silly nymph, whom night and darksome shade to beasts, and me far worse than beasts, betrayed. But where you be, if still you be, I wend to gather up those relics dear at least. But if some beast hath from the hills descend, and on her tender bowels made his feast, let that fell monster me in pieces rend, and deep entomb me in his hollow chest. For where she buried is, there shall I have a stately tomb, a rich and costly grave. Thus mourned the knight, his squires him told at last. They had her there, for whom those tears he shed, a beam of comfort his dim eyes outcast. Like lightning through thick clouds of darkness spread, the heavy burden of his limbs in haste, with mickle pain he drew forth of his bed. And scant of strength to stand, to move, or go, thither he staggered, reeling to and fro. When he came there, and in her breast espied his handiwork, that deep and cruel wound, and her sweet face with leaden paleness dyed, where beauty late spread forth her beams around, he trembled so, that near his squires beside, to hold him up, he had sunk down to ground, and said, O face in death still sweet and fair, thou canst not sweeten yet my grief and care. O fair right hand, the pledge of faith and love, given me but late, too late, in sign of peace, how haps it now thou canst not stir nor move? And you, dear limbs, now laid in rest and ease, through which my cruel blade this floodgate rove, your pains have end, my torments never cease. O hands, O cruel eyes, accursed alike, you gave the wound, you gave them light to strike. But thither now run forth my guilty blood, whither my plaints, my sorrows cannot wend. He said no more, but as his passion would enforced him, he 'gan to tear and rend his hair, his face, his wounds. A purple flood did from each side in rolling streams descend. He had been slain, but that his pain and woe bereft his senses, and preserved him so.